This week's vlog post has a very interesting question about a very common emotion. The writer says, some people tell me I'm angry, and other people say I'm bitter. I don't know the difference. It used to just make me mad, and I'd tell people to mind their own business. But now I realize that whether I'm angry or bitter, I'm not happy, and I want to change. My question is, what is the difference between anger and bitterness? Is one just about old hurts and the other about new stuff? And if there is a difference to these two emotions, is there a difference in how change happens? I think this is an excellent question. And just to begin with, I would affirm the fact that you're asking the question. The fact that you're bringing this question to somebody instead of having somebody bring their experience of their emotion to you and say, "Whoa, buddy, I think you're out of line." It's a very positive indicator about the possibility for change. So let me begin by commending you for that. Now, I think you highlight a very good distinction. I do think bitterness tends to be about past hurts, and anger tends to be more for present hurts. Because bitterness takes time to develop, and anger does tend to flare up in the moment. Now, I would like to add maybe another layer to that distinction. Anger commonly says, "You hurt me." Bitterness, on the other hand, says, "I'll never be hurt again." And if I'm right about that distinction, then I would say one of the key differences between anger and bitterness is the presence or absence of vulnerability. When I'm angry, there's still enough vulnerability in the relationship that it's a live relationship. When I am bitter, I'm beginning to shut off that vulnerability. So when I'm angry, it reveals that I'm invested in the relationship enough to be hurt. Bitterness, on the other hand, reveals that I am closed off in a way of self protection, that I want to make sure that I'm never going to be hurt again. So that brings us to your other question. What does that mean for the process of change? And so with anger, and I'm going to assume for the moment that the anger was expressed poorly, because I think for most of us that is the case, there's a few things that we need to do. We need to rightly identify what it is that we wanted so bad that we were willing to yell at, tune out, abuse, or neglect another person in order to get it. We need to find that thing that has become so important that we loved and trusted it more than we loved and trusted God and wanted to love and care for other people. And then after we identify what that idol is in our heart, then we want to repent of the overreaction. We want to acknowledge the things that we did were wrong. What was the behavioral manifestation of that thing that had become so important to us? Now, if it's in an interpersonal context, then that kind of identifying the idolatry and repenting of the behavior, that's going to apply to both people. That's taking the log out of your eye before you take the speck out of somebody else's, a Matthew 7, 1 through 5 type situation. But we say, now, how is my response to change with bitterness different from that? Well, in light of what we're saying, I would say that there's a preliminary step that needs to be taken. We must be willing to allow ourselves to trust again. That if we're going to overcome bitterness, it's not just about forgiving or acknowledging where we were wrong. There is this willingness to let our fall, to allow relationships to become close again, where there is both the possibility of pain and the possibility of joy in those relationships. Now, wisdom has to guide that process depending on the type of offense that we're talking about. But once we are willing to trust again, then we would deal with bitterness very similar to the way that we deal with anger. Now, at the bottom of this vlog post, I want to provide 4 resources that I think would be beneficial for you. One is the seminar, video-based seminar, Overcoming Anger. And just in that personal struggle with anger and how do I manage my own emotions and express self-control well in light of the hardships and offenses of life, I think this seminar could serve you. There's also a link to my booklet on vulnerability that walks through the Beatitudes as an example of what Christ said made for a blessed or satisfying life. And I think it will help you see the goodness of vulnerability when, after being hurt, we can begin to look at vulnerability as if it were just a bad word. Now, the third resource is a series of blogs that I did on being married to a chronically self centered spouse. Now, your situation may not apply to a marriage context. But I do think there are times when, as Christians, we have neglected how do we think through the way we process offenses when we're in a not safe relationship. And so that series, if you say, I want to do this, but I just don't feel like the relationship that I'm in is safe, I think this resource would provide you some guidance. And then finally, the fourth resource is from our Creating a Gospel Centered Marriage series, the seminar on communication. And this would help you develop some of the interpersonal skills and habits and protocols that would help you and this other person deal with conflict well, so that hopefully the context for anger or bitterness would decrease. But let me say again, I want to thank you for your question, the humility and the character that it takes to bring that kind of question up. And I hope that this video and the resources that come with it can help you find joy in the midst of the messy relationships that we all live in each day. Thank you.